So, I'm going to be sharing. Well, firstly, what's up, guys? It's Carter. My handle is Selen. Whatever. Um, what I want to share today is a way to go about understanding. I haven't actually put into practice, but understanding data structures and algorithms. And what you would use is AI, specifically Gemini. Um, and I'm going to be talking about a new mode of learning that I think is at the frontier and no one has really tried yet. And this involves a constant conversation with AI. Now, um, at least for how my brain is structured, communication is really important. And I shouldn't say that. In general, communication is very important in terms of processing information, encoding it, right? Uh, so that you can recall it later. And specifically, semantic encoding, in terms of psychology, is the best way to remember something. It's the most efficient way for it to be in your brain and accessible. So, what I propose is that you can talk to people, and that's how a lot of people get smart, right? They talk to other people. They or understand the world through conversation. You know, people on Jeopardy, what they do is they talk to their friends or their family about certain things about the world. They ask questions. They test themselves. All these things. That's how they get really good at Jeopardy. And if you watch Jeopardy, it's just mind blowing how much they know about the world. Um, so what I propose is um, what you do every day is collect information, words that you have no idea about, like what their meanings are, what their background is, all this sorts of stuff. And we do this naturally, right? But a lot of people, at least for me, I struggle with just letting it slide, you know? But that's because I have a very hard time getting at the information, right? I can research it, all this stuff, but at the end of the day, it's going to be written in terms of, um, like, the people who understand the subject. And the problem is, the people who understand the subject don't know how exactly to communicate it to you if it's a difficult thing to understand unless you've experienced it, something like that. Now you might be wondering, well, how is it different? Large language models like Gemini are simply scraping the data and rewriting it in a concise manner. Right, so the difference is you have the ability to ask more questions, to ask bad questions, really bad questions, um, without wasting the time of others, right? So people who want to teach you something, they're trying to get you to understand it, but if you have a very silly question to ask, you should ask it, but um, you would be wasting their time to some degree, and you don't want to do that, right? So, and you might not get the best answer. But with Gemini, what you can do is go on a walk. I go on a walk and ask it questions. Ask it questions. Ask it really stupid questions so that your semantic encoding is absolutely efficient, is precisely as it should be. Now, the questions you ask, probably the most difficult aspect. Because you have to understand what you don't know, and that's what I was saying. You have to collect this information. You have to collect the stuff you don't know. Almost like having another mind. Now, people who are married, right? That's kind of what they have. They have another mind, so they get to large crystallized intelligence through the interaction between those two people. Now you'd be doing the same thing, but with someone who doesn't judge you, right? Who has an infinite amount of time on their hands to answer your questions, who has a comprehensive knowledge base, arguably the most comprehensive knowledge base of any person, and you can access them at any time, just on your phone. So these things are amazing, absolutely amazing, and it bumps up this level of learning, which is engaging with conversation. It bumps it up to the top. It's the number one way to learn something now. The only thing you need to get better at is asking questions, prompting it better. That's it. And understanding what you don't know. That's it. Now, so, I mean, I propose if somebody just sits in their room and asks these questions, like for years and years, if this is your number one way to learn. Certain problems you might run into, right, is inaccurate data or inaccurate responses. But if you're uncertain about certain things, you just keep asking it questions. But if you just focus on this, you don't need to write anything down, because you can just revalidate. You know, you want to recall something, you revalidate it to Gemini. Like, I can recall this trivia right here. So, because I had a conversation with Gemini. It's a very good way to learn. And I'm not good at history, so I might even get this wrong, but the fact that I can remember these specifics. So, Leonhard Euler was a mathematician, and just for reference, I had like one conversation with this Gemini like a month ago, and I can recall this information. So Leonhard Euler was a mathematician, very famous mathematician. I already knew about him, but I didn't know his first name. In the 1700s, just specifically the early 1700s, specifically 1736, discovered graph theory, which is a CS concept I already knew about, but it's where you have nodes, you have edges, and they connect, and you can create networks and maps and all these sorts of ways to represent data. The nodes would be like your data, the edges would be like what their connection is to other data. But the Leonhard Euler discovered graph theory through solving a problem in Königsberg, Prussia. There was a river. It was called the Seven Bridges of Königsberg. That's what it was called. Now there was a river. There was two islands, and then there was land masses on each side. And he had to figure out, can I go through each of these islands only once, in one single path? And he discovered the answer was no. So, are there 7 bridges, and can I go through each of these bridges just once, and go through each of them? And he found out the answer was no, using graph theory. And hey, I didn't write that down. I didn't know any of that. And it was just a simple conversation with Gemini. But it was, you gotta be, and this is just in general, and I think I struggle with this, is just asking stupid questions to people. I would much rather be the teacher, you know what I mean? And I learned so much through teaching. But man, when I have a really dumb understanding about something, I struggle with asking the question. Because, I don't know. I just don't, I feel like this is just my insecurity. Yeah. So I like feeling intellectually superior sometimes, and that's why I struggle. Well, I mean, everyone struggles with this to some degree, right? We don't like asking dumb questions. We don't like being embarrassed. The idea, but with Gemini, there's no embarrassment at all. There's nothing to be afraid of because it's simply an algorithm. Um, so that's why I think this is the number one way to learn right now. And people I think are just now figuring it out. Um, and seriously, you sit in a isolated room and just ask these questions using natural language because you don't want to just type them because your eyes can see stuff on the screen. I mean, that's a good way to learn too, but it's not the same as hearing it and then communicating back. I don't know what the consequences of doing this are going to be in the future, but this is the most expressive and efficient way to learn right now. So if you have the opportunity to use Gemini and speak to it, that's what you should do if you want to understand certain concepts. I think it's easier to learn about specific concepts, terms, facts about the world than it is to learn about like specific things like what's the news recently. Well, it's not going to tell you that, but basically just crystallize knowledge is what you can really get good at with this mode of learning, I mean. So, yeah. Another thought I have for you guys, if you enjoy it, leave a comment or something. Alright, see ya.